Hello, my name is Mohammed Shahwan, a second semester master's student with thesis at OKAN University. Topic of my research: shelter your identity with the first stability. Today I will be talking about new settlements, followed by an enhanced research about settlements, with a new proposal for those that are exiled and displaced with force to leave their land with no shelter or security. I would like to thank Professor Samih Serialdez for his supervision all throughout this year, especially for my new settlements project for those that are exiled and displaced. Shelter your identity with the first stability. Starting off with the abstract, living is a right for every human being. Thus, the matter of living that we see on daily basis is nothing but an insult for many individuals, tribes, and cultures out there. Few countries, a simple separation is causing harm, racism, discrimination, and unfair living style despite the advantages of fingerprints that a single individual could afford in order to make a difference in the universe we live in. Nationality, color, and location are never to be on an architectural agenda to be imagined, designed, and applied for such humiliating outcomes. Designs are to be functional and above all sheltering everyone in the way they deserve to be sheltered. My main keywords for this research is shelter, safety, and equality. Starting off with the introduction and moving in more to the research, I chose talking about the topic of new settlements in relation with those that are exiled and in need, especially those that are living in refugee camps and are out of their countries, such as people in Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, etc. We see those people that are displaced, but what's more irritating is to see those displaced in their own hometown, separated with a concrete border that doesn't allow them to live the living that they can afford or need. The objective of the research is to basically have a fair awareness with an organized list of solutions targeting those refugees and exiled people that are forced to live under offensive, humiliating circumstances that are out of their dual abilities, nor have a choice to solve or speak up for the rights to maintain something better. For my research goal, I'm mainly focusing again on those that are displaced, to reduce racism and discrimination, and above all provide both securities and opportunities for those whom got initiatives and potential to enhance develop something in the universe. Research questions are mainly asking, what is the main point of having a settlement? How efficient could the settlement be? What are the positive and negative factors of a settlement? Are settlements having enough functions to be supported? What's needed to add the right function for a settlement? How often is a settlement needed? All these questions are related to settlements in order to enhance the building of new settlements for those that are displaced. In here I have my methodology part where I move on into defining what a settlement is. A settlement is basically a place that typically one which has previously been uninhabited. A settlement is considered to be located place where people basically demonstrate a community. Settlements vary in size, whether they're small or large. This is how it gets defined according to the function it has. This is how you see it as big or small, and the development in it enhances more or less. The functions that are seen in a settlement are such as the list that is mentioned here: touristic resorts, residential needs, administration, commercial purposes, route centers, manufacturing, ports, cultural and religious purposes, market town, or mining towns. How can we describe a settlement? A settlement is basically defined and just described in its area, how large it could be, by its site, having the actual land upon which a settlement is built on, the functions that are in it related to the economic and social development, the shape that it has, speaking more into depth about the patterns. We will be talking about more the pattern types through the research, the population that it has, and the situation that it's in. In here we can see the figure where it describes a settlement's hierarchy. A settlement hierarchy basically describes the size, the surrounding, and the functions of how a settlement is basically defined more, whether it's a town or a village or a city or a hamlet. And here we can see in the pyramid how each one is defined according to the size and everything that was mentioned above. Things that are needed in a settlement are basically a good site, accessibility, the land usage, the public transportation of the urban life there and how the entrances are, how the exits are, and how people walk inside with bicycles, with cars, with taxis, with metros, buses, etc. The different usable functions that are in there, the services in relation with the settlement pattern and hierarchy. What is a settlement pattern? When it comes to settlement, there are different patterns that are designed for a settlement, such as a nucleated settlement, a linear settlement, and a dispersed settlement. Here we can see more about the patterns of the settlements. The dispersed settlement is basically the settlements or the buildings that are located within the functions are randomly spread around the land. The nucleated pattern is basically a pattern where everything is just combined with each other in a more close manner. The linear pattern is basically having the land isohips going in one line where each building is aligned within the land itself and all the buildings are aligned on one pattern, united with equality. The isolated is just separate without any surroundings. Here we can see a more detailed figure about how the dispersed, nucleated, linear, and this is just describing how the buildings are being separated in each pattern difference. This is another example of a linear settlement pattern, how everything is organized equally along one line, all the streets are going to each other, they all have the benefit of the sea here, everything is just on one alignment. Here we can see a real example of a dispersed or scattered pattern, it's also called a scattered one, where there's more space and each one is just separated on its own but still called a settlement according to the land usage. Another pattern is called a radial pattern. A radial or a circular pattern is a midpoint dominance where each building is aligned and directed through this middle point. All the transportation, all the community places, all the commercial areas are just aligned within this radical point that separates and directs you everywhere to this settlement. When it comes to settlements, you need to have specific site characteristics which can come into a more enhanced settlement. For example, the route centers, the bridging point, the site itself, how is it like, what it's looking at, how's the topography of the heights and differences, so the buildings could be known on how they will be placed and having more enhanced land as well. Here we can see more an explanation of what I was talking about. For example, some settlements are near a bridging point in which they have bridges along to cross to other sides. Some have dry points where they are on a long mountain, on a high mountain, away from the bridges and lake for more security and safety from animals, from humans, from people that are outside. Nodal points that are separated and aligned within the lake in order to have more benefit of the lake and water sources and everything. Defensive, which is on a very higher level where they see animals or other people that might attack those settlements, they are on a higher point and they can be more defensive and ready to attack and defend themselves. Wet points, where they are actually separated inland within the source of water itself, and this is just an aspect of shelters that it could help provide a more enhanced settlement. Of course, for every positivity there's a negativity, and sometimes there could be land floods from the water sources that are nearby. The land is too steep, easy to be attacked, maybe poor quality of farmland, no supplies from using the trees and everything, or there might be no trees around, So you have to take into consideration what is around, what's not around, what are the sources, what are the benefits, in order to avoid those negative aspects that might come within the settlement. Another type of settlement is a refugee settlement that started to get more known recently, especially after the wars and conflict and occupation that's being occupied all around the world. Even land circumstances such as earthquakes and floods can cause such settlement to happen. But those are called informal settlements. When it's informal, it means that it's not shown on the map. They are not benefiting or known by the government in order for them to live. So whenever the government sees them or something, they might kick them out, or they might just ignore them and not have any benefit of electricity, water, or whatever it is that can be provided for a human. Here I'm talking about more of the urban structure of how it can help provide more land in order for access to be easier, in order to the zones to have more privacy and more for the public areas. The environmental consideration that needs to be taken into consideration, such as the wind, the sun, the light, the noise that could be around, the recyclable material that we can use. And in conclusion, everyone deserves to live in a world of equality that isn't only saying it with scripts but applying with actions as well. New settlements are a very common thing, an area in countries and locations around the world. Many differ from one another. By the end, it's us humans who designed those settlements. It's us humans that began and came up with the ideas of categorizing, supporting, sheltering, and accumulating with the things that are available. So why not have a good print in order to support those with no shelters, enhance their creativity in a civilized manner, where everyone lives freely and fairly, to help develop the world into a bigger image than what we have already. Here I have my sources and my bibliography for all the references that I used throughout my research. This is the Turkish part translated on my research about settlements. And here we can see more examples about the settlements in relation to how we can develop. For example, here I mentioned some examples where some settlements are informal, nucleated, or just, having the defensive part of it, or the shelter purpose, or any purpose that it can be, which is like having a wet point, just like we explained. The location of each settlement in here, some are in Jordan, in Turkey, Palestine, Brazil, Indonesia. Mentioned many examples from many different countries to see the similarities and the differences and compare what can be better and what can be less for advantages and disadvantages purposes. I also mentioned the purpose and the function of what it can afford, because some settlements are for commercial reasons, some are for residential reasons, so it was a good comparison to see which one is more advantage from the other, having a benefit as well. Here you can see the SWOT analysis that I created throughout those examples in order to compare them more. Then we move on to the design proposals. Starting off with the location that I've chosen, which is in Istanbul, Turkey, in a district called Kartal. Kartal means eagle, and the total land of the area of Kartal is around 34.43 kilometers square. It's located along the Sea of Marmara. It's a very old settlement, but very developed, and was known for one of the best in Istanbul, Turkey, and around the world. The transportation to reach this district is basically through walking, a car, a taxi, minibus, a bus, a metro, and a ferry. Those are all affordable transportation in order to reach there from any district in Istanbul. Here we can see the site analysis explaining the sun direction. So as the location of the site of mine, the north wind and the west wind. Basically, Turkey is a big country, and Istanbul is even one of the most touristic places that is known in Turkey. Capital of Turkey is Ankara. The population is around 5,400 and something, which is approximately counted in 2019, but it changes now, especially after the pandemic counting. The religion is mostly Muslims. The nationality is Turkish. The currency that's used in there is the Turkish lira. The largest city there is called Konya, and the languages spoken is mostly Turkish. There are many different foreigners there, such as Arabs, English people, Russians, etc. The most common language that is mostly spoken there is Turkish. This is some photos of my site along the coast, Kartal Forest, and the main site where it's located along the Marmara Sea. Here we can see some graphs locating the daylight, the temperature, and the water throughout the years. The climate summary of how the climate is in Kartal, Istanbul, Turkey, and of course the sun and wind direction. For my site isohips here, I'm explaining for Kartal each district, where it's separated here each district along, and the more light the colors such as green and blue, the more low the isohips are, and the more red the highest it is. And we can see it more in details here, how the land is just coming like this. And Turkey is known to be one of the most rough land countries, where mountains are there and it's very steep and high. Here we can see a more explanation, so as in this graph on the bottom right, where it shows in red how much steepness there is in the land itself. Moving on to my proposals. For my bubble diagram, I'm planning to have more common areas in order to have a benefit for more people that are having residentials around and having more activities after the exile and everything, in order to come along with more activities, in order to have a more social experience, a more communicative experience as well, because it's been harmful and psychologically not very healthy for them. So I'm planning to have my common area as my main function there. I will be having residential around, so as schools, colleges, hospitals, cinemas and activity centers, restaurants and cafes as well, and small health centers. Those are all interlinked within the common areas and all have direct relations and can be relations. We can see the relationships here. For my matrix also, I mentioned the main relations between each function. Moving on to my interior residential part, I want to have a living room, kitchen, dining room, and 2 bedrooms in each floor. I will be having around 25 buildings. The capacity of people that on my site can live as a number would be 6,400 people. I will be having 6 religious units. It will have 2,300 capacity of people, 4 schools with the capacity of 720 people, 2 colleges with the capacity of 1,100 people, 10 common areas. It could be for activities, parks, etc., and it will have the capacity of 3,200 people. Health centers that will be numbered for 8 health centers in each district and place for the residential. Around the residential and common areas, health centers are needed, and it will have the capacity of 980 people. 3 cinemas and 30 restaurants and cafes that will have the capacity of 1,150 people. As total, it will be 10,120 meters square that will fit all of this capacity of people. And in my opinion, it will be a good project to be proposed in order to have this amount of people, especially for residential. 25 buildings, each building will be 120 meters square. We can see the meter square for the interiors for each space here. For example, the living room will be 30 meters square, each room will be 27 meters square, the dining room 10 meters square, and the kitchen is around 25 meters square. A 120 meters square would benefit many people, especially the capacity of 6 8,400 people in order to live and have shelter for them. For my users, it will be men, women, families, kids, for all open users. Moving on to my design proposals within this research. For my site plan, I will be having a closed settlement. By closed, I mean no cars, no buses, no other transportation will be going into the settlement itself. They will be leaving people by the borders of the settlements. We can see the borders around here. There's three parkings around the settlements, two parkings that are outside coming from the road, and one parking that could be a drop-off parking and they can just go out of the settlement. But inside deeply of each unit of the settlement, the only way they will go in would be by walking or bicycle for more security and more comfort for them, especially after the wars and exile that they have. Here we can see some silhouettes of my longitude and latitude site. Also, the reason why I placed those buildings in such manner is to benefit from the Marmara Sea that is over here. And the reason why I placed my commercial area on the top, because this is the highest point there and it can get a benefit away from the residential, so as a benefit of a high view for the sea. A more detailed plan for my one unit of my residential area, we can see another parking over here outside of the unit, and people can enter with bikes or walking, and they can go into each building that is around 120 meters square. It will be around 4 floors, and in each floor there are 2 units for living. Each residential area has a garden outside that they can enjoy and have activities in, and they are combined within activity and commercial areas that they can sit at night or during the day, or the kids could play at. People, as said, can come to the border of the settlement in all types that are afforded in Istanbul, Turkey, which is car, taxi, etc. But inside of the settlements, it would be walking and by bike. And last but not least, for my 120 meters square, this is how two proposals are being proposed in order to have an interior of a comfortable living for the residential areas. Here I have, for my plan A, I have my entrance part going on to my kitchen, dining room, and a living room. Then we have the 2 bedrooms over here. These are considered to be master bedrooms with no shared bathroom. Each has its own bathroom. And for my other proposal, I have the same entrance within the kitchen and dining and living. However, there's a shared bathroom here where a bedroom is just a bedroom, not a master bedroom, in order to have a benefit, in order for visitors to come, or having other people from outside to use the toilet inside of this residential area. It all depends on the needs, functions, and everything, and hopefully one day people will be more sheltered with a fair stability.